Good morning, everyone. Today, we'll be doing the poem The Bus by Arun Kolatkar. Arun Balakrishna Kolatkar is a Marathi poet who wrote with ease in Marathi and English. He was born on 1st November 1932 and died on 25th September 2004. During his lifetime, he has influenced many Marathi poets by his works. He has received Sahitya Academy Award in 2005 and Commonwealth Writers' Prize in 1977. Kolatkar's most famous poem in English is a long poem, Jejuri, which has been highly praised by critics. He was awarded Commonwealth Poetry Prize. His poem, Jejuri, is modern in sensibility, skeptical, ironic, and witty. Jejuri is a pilgrim center of the southeast of Pune. Kolatkar describes his visit to Jejuri, reaching there by bus and returning by train in this poem. In this poem, The Bus, Kolatkar describes his journey, as I told you, to Jejuri. The state transport bus is very old. The tarpaulin flaps are buttoned down on the windows. A corner of the tarpaulin goes on slapping the poet's elbow because of strong cold winds. There are no signs of daybreak yet. A ray of the morning sun enters the bus through a very small hole in the tarpaulin. A sunbeam falls near the driver's temple. The road is rough and bumpy, and the journey is very uncomfortable. This is about the introduction to the poem. This poem is the first poem of the 31 poems collection, Jejuri. And as I told you, Jejuri was his first book of anthology of English poetry. Poems in this collection are fragmented narrative of a visitor's experience to the ruins of Jejuri, a pilgrim site in Maharashtra, Pune, I told you. This collection of poems, published in 1976, received Commonwealth Writers' Prize in 1977. It is one of the well-known poems in English literature, Indian English literature. Like his other poems in this collection, he has employed the commonplace experience to reveal a more complex revelation. The monotonous journey and the bumpy ride in this poem come to an end by streaks of light. His purpose of the visit has nothing to do with the old man who traveled with him, so the speakers warn the visitor not to entertain conversation or get his view of religion or about the place. The main theme of the poem, The Bus, is about the visitor's travel experience. Inside this simple theme, the poet has woven the themes of contrasting religious faith and opinion between old and young, modern generation. In the last line, you don't step inside the old man's head, the poet talks of the inflexibility of the modern generation who has no patience to listen to the stories or experiences of the old people. The setting of the poem is the bus itself. The whole poem is set on the bus along with the various screenshots of images at different times of the journey. The speaker is addressing a visitor who is on his way to Jejuri along with fellow passengers. Whether the speaker is present in the bus or not is uncertain, still, he talks of what the visitor can expect in his journey. This could also be interpreted as advice to a person who is intending to go on a pilgrimage to Jejuri. The Bus is a free verse poem of 25 lines carelessly arranged to form the poem. The poem has no specific rhyme scheme. It is a simple descriptive poem about the journey to Jejuri. He has captured the scenes outside and inside in the well depicted images with his objective view and phrases like you look down, your own divided face, your elbow, you get off the bus, take the readers on a journey to Jejuri. The poem's loosely set structure and his choice of simple language help to deal with his major theme, the journey in India. The poem is conversational in tone, for the poet keeps talking or giving guidance to the visitor about the experience of traveling on a bus to Jejuri. Let me read the first 5 lines and go on to explain it. The tarpaulin flaps are buttoned down on the windows of the straight transport bus all the way up to Jejuri. A cold wind keeps whipping and slapping a corner of the tarpaulin at your elbow. The poem Bus opens with the poet's description of the bus which is on its way to Jejuri. The poem was written in 1976, so the windows of the state transport bus is covered with tarpaulin flaps instead of glass. As the bus keeps moving forward, the cold wind blows heavily on the tarpaulin, and tarpaulin is a material made of tent cloth, and tries to move it. Its constant attempt is described as whipping and slapping, especially of the human attributes of anger and displeasure. The wind blowing on the tarpaulin at your elbow presents the speaker or the poet as an observer than the subject. And the use of the verbs like slipping and whipping is used to give life to the wind, and so it is the personification of wind. Moving on to the next few lines. You look down the roaring road, you search for signs of daybreak in what little light spills out of the bus, your own divided face in a pair of glasses on an old man's nose is all the countryside you get to see. As the journey moves forward in the lines from 6 to 10, the poet talks about the natural curiosity of a traveler to look outside. The tarpaulin is not seen through and tied to the window, so everything the visitor could see is the roaring road. The poet further states the visitor may vainly try to look for daybreak in the limited light spilling out from the bus, for they are traveling at night, searching for the signs of daybreak, indicates the restlessness of the fellow traveler for the journey to end sooner or the eagerness to be in Jejuri. However hard the traveler may try, all the scenes he gets to see is of the divided self of himself in the reflection of the glass pair of glasses on an old man's nose. The divided face is of a retrospective in nature, for the person has to deal with his divided self. In this context, the divided self depicts the poet's religious beliefs and modern skepticism. Moving on to the next few lines, that is 11 to 16. You seem to move continuously forward towards a destination just beyond the caste mark between his eyebrows. Outside, the sun has risen quietly. It aims through an eyelet in the tarpaulin and shoots at the old man's glasses. Despite no description of moving forward, the poet in the bus says the traveler could know that he is moving forward towards the destination, to the ruins of Jejuri. As he was observing the divided face on the old man's spectacles, he looks further at the caste mark, which depicts the religious belief, the tilak on the forehead. That symbolic representation of the caste mark, or of mark of Hinduism, which is tilak, indicates the difference between the old man's religious faith and of the young traveler. By then, he notices the sun's rays seeping through the eyelet in the tarpaulin and reflecting at the old man's glasses. The verb shoots and aims, used in these lines, personify the sun. Let me go on to line 17 to 20. A sword of sunbeam comes to a rest gently against the driver's right temple, then seems to change direction at the end of the bumpy ride with your own face on either side when you get off the bus. Line 17 to 20 of the poem. The bus gives the picture of daybreak and its view inside the bus. Outside the bus, the sun has risen. As the bus changes direction, a sawed off, cut off sunbeam falls on the right temple of the driver. The sawed off sunbeam indicates the sharpness of the sun rays and serve as strong visual imagery. Since the poet is also an artist, bringing art into writing is never an issue for the poet. This is personified by the poet as if the sunbeam coming to rest gently on the temple, the side of his head of the driver like a human being. Finally, they have reached their destination at the end of the bumpy ride with your own face on either side indicates the hard path one has to take to reach the destination. The last line, You don't step inside the old man's head. The single last line of the poem, The Bus, indicates the poet's attitude towards going to Jejuri. The old man's head represents his belief. The poet does not want to have a conversation with the old. As the young generation of his time, he is indifferent to the religious belief. He also instructs the traveler not to step inside the old man's head. The old man is used to symbolize the old generation, and the traveler symbolizes the young generation in modern society. While the former visits the religious monuments like Jejuri with devotion, the latter goes not with such belief. This much for today. Thank you, girls.